Welcome to the show. It's IB Nation Sports Talk. We're up and rolling. We've got a ton going on today. We're going to have some whiteboard. Jesse's going to be with me in a little bit. He's going to bring out the whiteboard. He's going to give us the best things that he saw in Saturday's win over North Carolina State. We've got rapid fire after that, some Sam Hartman, a whole lot of other stuff. Brian and Vince didn't do an afternoon show today. They're going to be on at 8 o'clock Eastern time tonight, taking a look at where Notre Dame is right now and previewing Central Michigan. Well, I'm not going to waste any time because, this is a podcast, YouTube, and everything else. And you see what the title says. It says Reggie Brooks. Reggie Brooks is here to talk some Notre Dame football. So you can't actually see his face. He's a little bit in witness protection, but I guarantee you that's actually Reggie Brooks on the other side of that dot right there. How you doing, Reggie?
I'm doing well.
Always good to have you. Drive safely. I know you're out there driving, and you said, you didn't put the video up so you can actually drive out there today. But of course, Reggie, Notre Dame great. He and I used to host the radio post-game show together not too long ago, and he still does it on WSBT here in town. And he's, of course, the executive director of the Holtz's Heroes Foundation. What's going on at Holtz's Heroes these days, by the way?
Well, again, we got a lot going on in terms of, like I said, being able to help former players that find themselves struggling, whether it's addiction, mental health, find themselves in financial trouble, just to be a support system, and also we have our scholarship. We've got 2 scholarship winners for the Lose Lad Scholarship that we provide every year for 2 deserving and needy students. And then we also have the Bread of Life food drive, where again, we're actually in the middle of a campaign now of raising money for food, but also bringing in food for food banks, because this is kind of the time when they start running low over, everybody focuses on like Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter. But, there's a need year round. I mean, we just was able to do about $5,000 that we were able to give to the Maui Food Bank.
Oh, very cool.
To assist there. So again, it's just the opportunity to share the blessings that we have with others, and also be a member of our communities. We have guys all over the country, and being able to provide support, but also provide support for our communities where we live, and doing it in a kind of, rallying around each other.
All right, great stuff. And you can find them holtzsheroes.org, correct?
Correct.
All right, holtzsheroes.org if you'd like to find out more, help out, and any of that kind of stuff. And you're right about that food banks, because about a month here, it's going to start getting colder, and that's, like you said, leading up to the holiday season when things start getting cooler outside. That's when it becomes a great necessity for a lot of people. So great to be helping them out already. Well, let's talk a little Notre Dame football, Reggie. The Irish are 3-0 after that win over North Carolina State. Let's start big picture, and then we'll dive deeper into some other stuff since we've got you here tonight. What do you think of this Notre Dame team that we've seen so far?
It's been impressive. I mean, they've won different ways, and I mean, it all starts with we found us a quarterback that puts us in good situations, that understands the importance of taking care of the football. And, it's been great seeing the success these young men are having. And, we're running the football, we're passing the football, we're throwing to outside receivers, tight ends, and running backs. So it's being well distributed. And defensively, I mean, we had a good thing going there. I was a little spoiled that we hadn't given up a touchdown those first 2 games. And, we give up 3. And I'm like, hey, this isn't acceptable. What's going on here?
Uh-huh.
But they were playing. They came up against a good football team in North Carolina State, and they're going to make some noise in the ACC. So we kept our streak alive with that. I think it's now 29 straight wins over ACC opponents, and so I'm excited, and to see where this team can go because great leadership, and they look like they're having fun.
You mentioned Sam Hartman and what he's done so far. We were talking here recently. Some people were saying the best Notre Dame quarterback since Joe Montana. That's a long time. That's a long stretch. You played with
Whoa.
some good ones. Like, is that a little bit high? Is that still a little bit high right now? What do you think of that?
Oh, that's a lot of bit high. Because I would say, again, you got guys like Tony Rice, and then you have Rick Meyer, but also
Right.
Brady Quinn. Did we forget? We lose track of who he was?
Exactly. Well, and another guy who I think maybe flies under the radar a little bit is a guy who was a little bit before your time, but played in the NFL with you, or at the same time as you in the NFL, is Steve Berline. He was pretty good quarterback himself, even.
Oh yes, I mean, again, guys that had success is just a little different.
Absolutely. What about Marcus Freeman? What do you think of the growth that he's shown already here in year 2 of being a head coach?
It's been great seeing him, learn on the run. That's been interesting to see his growth. And you've seen it in the press conferences and things like that. So it's just been with his youth. It's been amazing to see how well he's done, and he continues to grow and develop.
Absolutely. And I think that one of the things that we've heard about, and you as a former player, I'm wondering if you can kind of speak to this a little bit, that the fact that the relationships that he's tried to build with former players and bringing players back and that kind of thing. How different is it right now under Marcus Freeman?
Man, it is light years different from, like I said, I would wish I had a little more opportunity to have worked with him in developing that program, because that was one of the things that I did as a former player. I mean, with Notre Dame, in that sense of working to do more with the alumni outreach, and he's done a remarkable job. We just recently had a kind of a State of the Union. I mean, we're in season, and this guy's providing opportunities for us to connect and reconnect with him. So it's been, phenomenal. I mean, it's kind of scary how much he's given, and he's everywhere. And that's the thing about his energy, and he's so supportive of all the other sports. And like I said, I've had the opportunity to reach out to him. He responds back. I mean, he's just so engaged, and it's so refreshing to see someone that understands the importance of having alumni back and keeping those alumni members engaged, on a consistent basis.
It's funny you say he's everywhere, because he had the travel diary and stuff going on this summer before training camp started, when he was kind of bouncing all over the country to some different spots. And there were some people like, well, you need to focus more on football and that kind of stuff. And it's like, okay, now when you see the results already so far, I think people can live with him kind of spreading himself around. That's amazing that he's still reaching out like that, I think, to you players, former players, during the season even.
It's phenomenal. It's just flat out phenomenal that he's taken the time to do this, and just make himself available to us, and just showing appreciation for what the former players provided.
I want to talk about this running back room. I know your eyes have to light up when you see these guys. What do you think of the job that Deland McCullough has done with the guys in that room so far?
Oh man, he has been phenomenal. I'm a big fan of his and his ability to get the most out of those guys, and and those guys like him. And again, that's things seems like a medial thing, but he's someone that those guys really appreciate and feel a connection with. And again, he also demands a lot from those young men, but they know, hey, he really cares about them and for them to be successful. And he had his own success, so he actually kind of models what he wants to see in his guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And you obviously played in some talented running back rooms. Like you had of course, you had your brother Tony Brooks, Jerome Bettis, Rodney Culver, Lee Becton, Ricky Waters. I mean, not all at the same time. Rodney Culver, like all those guys in that early
Ray Zellers.
Yeah, Ray Zellers. There you go. Another one. I mean, you guys just had talent overflowing in that running back room. But where, like, this running back room, it has to, like, do you think that when you look at just the talent and what they've shown so far, is it the best from top to bottom, maybe we've seen since those days when you were playing?
I would think so, but but again, I would say what Coach McCullough has done with this group is more impressive because, if somebody's not happy, they take off.
That's true.
We were kind of felt like we were stuck, so we didn't really have that same mindset. Our coaches didn't have to deal with basically recruiting players, his own guys, every year. And the fact that he's been able to get that many guys involved, and they also understand the value of, because he coached at the professional level, so he understands the importance of production, not so much just a ton of yards. Because Edric had 100-some yards, but he was averaging 9 carries a pop.
Right.
That's what a lot of pro coaches that he can speak to and say, this is what they're looking for. They're looking for production and how do you get the most out of every carry.
How important is that? Because McCullough has talked about the list of the 9 jobs that he has, and each running back kind of fills in these different jobs. Obviously, Audric is sort of the full-time guy, and these other guys have these part-time jobs alongside with it. But when you're talking about that much talent in a room and you're giving these guys those opportunities, how important is that to kind of keep everyone invested and kind of both feed in on this thing?
Oh, in this day and age, it's critical. I mean, you look at it, and I mean, the ability to do that now is, it's almost like he's a magician, because, like I said, you're constantly having to recruit the same guys, but his delivery is, hey, I want you to be successful and have an opportunity at the next level. I've coached that level and coached at a high level on top of that. This is what you need to be focused on, is more of, hey, getting the most out of every carry, making sure you're solid on pass pro, catching the ball out of the backfield, but being a well-rounded back, and I will help you do that, and I will promote and push you in that regard.
So everyone wants to know with Audric Estime, he's a big back, obviously, but he's got really light feet. The Jerome Bettis comparisons. We've got someone asking, is that the comp to you? What's the Audric Estime comp? Is it Bettis, or is there's maybe somebody else you've seen?
I'll say Ray Zellers. I think, because Jerome was a little bit bigger. And the thing about JB, he was, and this is, nitpicking on my part, he did a better job of picking his feet up. And, watching Audric, he kind of like gets tripped up, but he gets through there. He's definitely gotten better about running through the trash, as we say, running through the line and running through the trash and not being tripped up so easily this year as he was last year. But and JB was a little bigger.
That's true. That's very true. I tell you what, Audric showed that speed, especially out there on that wet field Saturday against NC State on that 80-yard run, pulling away. He showed he's got some wheels to bring with it,
yeah.
didn't he?
And that was the thing about when he get a full head of steam and get going, big man can move.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. What do you think of the improvement that he's made from this year to last year? Like you said, you kind of nitpicked him maybe there a little bit, but I think he's shown quite a bit of improvement since last year too, don't you?
Oh yeah, he's continued to grow and develop as a back, and it's been great to watch and see him also develop. I mean, in listening to his interviews, it's been great to hear him, and how he's matured just in a few years that he's been there, and he's taken on that leadership role, and you can see that that he is the leader of that backfield, and he takes pride in that, and it shows in the way he plays, but it also shows in how he carries himself off the field as well.
I'm not sure when you look at this group if there is a Reggie Brooks comparison, but I'll ask you: is there anyone when you look at the rest of these guys in that room that maybe reminds you of you a little bit?
No, because again, like I said, most of those guys are a lot bigger in terms of height.
Sure.
But like I said, in terms of speed, I would say Jadarian Price. I mean, he's very explosive in his ability to move laterally and
Mm-hmm.
then get upfield. I'd say, in terms of comparable, moves and ability to get in and get going, he'd be the closest one I could, see. But he's 200. Well, I guess I was 210 pounds, but he was taller. And to be honest with you, I think I would give him the nod over me,
Okay.
because very impressive. He does a great job with pad level. It's been exciting to see him, and I can't wait to see more of him.
I tell you what, I completely agree with that. It's great to see him just doing what he's done so far since that Achilles injury last year. But then you look at this freshman, Jeremiah Love. I mean, you talk about a guy with an extra gear to go to, huh?
He's still learning, and like I said, when he gets it, now he's one that is very intriguing because when it finally clicks, look out. I mean, he's explosive. When he learns how to like run downhill, whoo, that kid's going to be a load, because he's going to get into a regimen of lifting and nutrition. Because he looks real slight. I can see him at a 215, 220, and
Right.
still maintain great top end speed.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I think there's a lot of growth for him. What do you think about? We talked a little bit about Sam Hartman, the passing game in general. There's a little bit of a split, I think, in how people kind of think of what's going on with the pass game distribution. You don't have that one kind of alpha dog receiver who's dominating everything. Nobody's putting up the huge numbers, but it's very consistent the way Sam Hartman spreads the ball around. What do you think of that?
And isn't that what you would want? I mean, because you can't really
Yeah,
zero in on one group. So, the outside receivers are doing well. I mean, and the first game we didn't throw it to a tight end.
right.
The tight end didn't have reception, but boom, this game, man, you had a couple of tight ends tight ends had 3 touchdown passes, and and some guys stepped up, coming out of the backfield. The one guy I'm really looking forward to seeing really put his stamp on things is Chris Tyree, moving over from receiver from running back. When he really gets it and really develops as a receiver, he's going to be exciting to watch, and another weapon. But it starts with Sam and his ability to go through his progressions and get to the open man. He's not just locked in on one person. You can see him go through his progressions and his reads and get the ball to the open man, and that's what you want as a quarterback.
I think so too. It's looking really sharp so far. How excited are you for Ohio State here in a couple weeks?
I'm not talking Ohio State. It's Central Michigan, baby. Central Michigan,
Okay.
one game at a time.
Okay. One game at a time. Central Michigan. Central Michigan tonight. Let me ask you this. You live in Dallas, and SMU, of course, is there. Are they pretty fired up about this whole ACC thing?
Uh, I really haven't heard anything, and I think it's still kind of new. So, but it's Texas. I mean, it's all about football right now. I mean, wherever it is, they're excited about football.
Yeah, there's no lie there. There's no lie there at all. Now, Jeff asked this. He, he said, "Did Lou share his story with you and the other running backs about sending someone to the bank with all your money and losing it on the way as an analogy or a metaphor, I guess, for ball security and fumbling. Did you ever hear that one from Lou Holtz?
Yes. He again, you're talking to someone that literally scored a touchdown unconscious because
Right.
subconsciously I knew if I would have fumbled that ball, conscious or not, you're out of the game. So he was beyond adamant of this is your life. That football is your life. So if you're putting your life on the line every time you carry that ball and the life of your teammates. So yeah, that analogy about the bank, because you're taking, and it was more of you're taking your money and your teammates' money, and you lose on the way. What do you think is going to happen to that person that loses everybody's money on the way?
You're not going to
It's
be
not going
very
to be
happy
good.
with that guy. That's right.
It won't be good.
That's exactly right. Somebody loses your money, you're not going to be happy with them at all. It's got to give you a lot of pride then that like every time they show the replay of that touchdown that you're talking about, you were unconscious, but you held on to the football all these years later. You never let it
He
go.
had a great way of getting into your head, and it's like you remember a lot of those things that even though you're in practice, he's chirping at you, but you retain a lot of the information because it's even effective in life. You treat people the way you want to be treated, and you take care of other people just as much as you take care of your own self.
Yeah. Real quick before I let you go, Reg, the defense. We've seen good improvement from the defense, especially with the turnovers. What do you think? What you've seen to that side of the ball so far?
I'm loving the speed, and that front seven is really good. But these safeties, that was a bit of a issue the last few years outside of Kyle Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
But having these multiple safeties in the secondary has really stepped up. I would like to see, and again, I think it also depends on the team you're playing, to see a better pass rush.
Right.
And getting, and I think the teams we've played outside of Tennessee State, because they had to kind of have their fits and make sure their rush lanes were they properly looked after, and they did a lot of spying on the kid from Ohio. I mean from North Carolina State, because he was such a good runner.
Right.
And I think with that, I think with this game, I'm looking to see more from the pass rush because it's more of a conventional quarterback that we'll be facing.
This week's quarterback is not going to be necessarily conventional. Bert Emanuel Jr. I'm trying to remember. Did you have any overlap with his dad, Bert Emanuel, in the NFL, or was he a little after you?
I think after me.
That's what I was thinking. But I mean, he's a guy who can run too. So and that's kind of the interesting thing I think about the schedule this season is we're going to see a lot of pretty mobile quarterbacks. The Duke quarterback here in a couple weeks. This guy this week, Caleb Williams, of course, and a lot of guys with some wheels.
Now that kid scares me even to this day.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So,
and that's only a little bit more than a month away.
John, Central Michigan.
Michigan. That's right. one focus, one game at a time. Reggie Brooks, Notre Dame great. Again, the executive director of Holtz's Heroes Foundation. Reg, it's great catching up with you. Again, the last time we saw each other was at a women's basketball game last year. We don't get to do this enough, so maybe we need to check in later on this season.
I look forward to it.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks again, Reggie.
All right. Take care, Sean.
You too. All right. Reggie Brooks bringing the heat from Dallas with all that he has. And here is Jesse Stiers.
I don't know how I'm supposed to follow up the great Reggie Brooks, but thanks for setting me up there.
That's right. Reggie's always a lot of fun, and I was a little disappointed that all I got to see was like the black screen and the little white dot there in the middle, but it's still good to hear his voice.
Yeah, you and Reggie used to do shows, quite a bit, post-game
we did.
shows.
Into the wee hours.
good to hear you guys back together and chopping it up a little bit. But I like Reggie's focus. One game at a time, baby. We're on to Central Michigan and Central Michigan only.
I know. He wouldn't even barely let me say Ohio State. He was having none of that. So, all right. Well, our focus in the game might be Central Michigan this week, but Whiteboard Tuesday is the best thing we saw Tuesday. And so, Jesse, you've got your whiteboard to draw up a couple of the best things, one or two of the best things that you saw from Saturday's game, correct?
Yeah, I got a kind of little hybrid situation going on here. So
Okay.
let me bring up one thing first, and then we'll get into a little bit of whiteboard. What I'm pulling up first will play into a whiteboard. How about that?
Okay.
There we go. That's the one I wanted.
All right. So we will put this up on the screen, and you'll have to tell me exactly what this is that we're looking at here.
Yeah. So I went through majority of the first half, a little bit of the second half until my computer, my TV recording kind of gave out to me, because remember, this game was delayed for like an hour and 50 minutes. So that really screwed my playback.
Forgot to set your DVR to extend a little bit, huh?
Yeah, so I basically went until I could, but I think it'll get to the point. I kind of went through, again, broke down some drives here of Notre Dame. The main things I looked at were, down personnel, running pass, the area of the field, and then the result of the play. So I'm going to start by, I know the segment is, the best thing I saw. But in order to get to the best thing I saw, I got to go through the worst thing I saw first.
Okay.
And it's going to play into how I got to the best thing I saw. So,
all right.
The thing that really frustrated me to start this game is Notre Dame wanted to run, and they wanted to run inside the tackles. And when we were going over, how to attack this defense, I said that in terms of the run game, what would be the most vulnerable would be the outside. And so, I wanted to look at, where Notre Dame was going with the ball. That's why I have like the area of the field and then what kind of play that they were running. So, in these first two drives right away, we can see that Notre Dame had two very quick 3-and-outs. And to me, a large portion of that is they started each of these possessions with, two run plays. Okay, they started the second drive with a screen play. I mean, that was basically, if you listen to Kirk Herbstreit, that's an extension of the run game. So I'll chalk that one up as a run. But again, they come out in 11 personnel, and they're running the ball, and it's right between the tackles. And you can see, gain, loss. They gain 1 yard and then no yards. They take a sack because, Sam Hartman has to sit back there on 3rd and long, and they have to punt. And that was a common theme kind of to start the game, is they were running inside, not really getting in anywhere with it. And then, Sam Hartman was left to fend for himself kind of on 3rd and long after getting behind the chains. We get into drive 3 here. And instead of, running the ball to start, we get 2 passes, both of them incomplete. So we're in a 3rd and long. And really this 3rd and long play is, I think, what bailed Notre Dame out of this drive, and maybe kind of started a little something for him in terms of getting momentum for the game. If people don't remember, this was the 3rd and long QB draw that Sam Hartman hit right up the middle. I love this call because they spread out the box. Mm-hmm. No one was left in the box. You can even see in my comment here, no one in the box. And so it's an easy run for Sam Hartman, right? Well, what do they do immediately? They try to do this screen on the outside. They get 2 yards, really nothing going. A series of, you have a pass play. And then to me, another thing that really kind of jumped the drive is instead of just pounding the ball inside between the tackles, yes, they ran it inside, but they got into a counter play here, right? And so they got 11 yards off the counter play. Okay, a little bit of a wrinkle. They run inside. Luckily on this one, they get 9 yards. And then the drive kind of stalls out. They get a field goal. So to me, this drive 3, they didn't really change much except the counter play. But they toughed out a field goal, right? Like they brooded through this drive, in my opinion, and were able to sneak out a field goal. And then we have the hour and 45-minute lightning delay. And this is what leads me into the best thing I saw from the game because
Bum, bum, bum.
we were so used to Tommy Rees running plays and them not working and just him continuously running those plays over and over again, even if they didn't have success. And so the best thing I saw was Jared Parker's adjustments coming out of this delay. And the main adjustment I saw, and I didn't even really realize this until I started watching back the game a little bit more, they started to go into this overload look, right? And what I mean by overload is they were putting 3 offensive linemen to one side and then a guard and a guard and a tight end to the other side. So let me switch screens here real quick. This is the look I'm talking about right here. They started to go into, again, to the right side of the formation. They had 3 offensive linemen. They were putting Joe Alt instead of the left tackle. They were putting him on the right side. So you had your right guard, your right tackle, and now your left tackle on the right side. So you had 3 big linemen on the right side, and then they were going guard and tight end to the other side. And then what they were using this like H-back, right? They were putting him in the backfield. They were putting him as a wing guy with the tight end. Whatever it was, they were going 2 tight ends, but they were displacing him in different parts of the field. And then on this play, what happens is, I believe this is, who's number 38? I asked you this the other day, the tight end.
Davis Sherwood.
He lines up here in the backfield. And this is the first play to, again, start the game after the lightning delay or the rain delay. They pull the guard and allow Sherwood to run up through the hole. Audric Estime makes the guy miss, and he's off to the races for an 80-yard touchdown, right? So Jared Parker said, okay, I still want to run between the tackles. That's fine, but he had to do something to change up the look. And that's exactly what he did. He put 3 linemen, offensive linemen to one side, overloaded that side, and then went guard tight in the backside. This was a common, and now let's go back to my other sheet here. This was a common occurrence in the entire, I wouldn't call it the second half, but I'd call this the second portion of the game, after the lightning or rain delay. Look at how many times in my comments here they go with this look and look at, what results from it. Instead of getting nothing on first or second down with these inside runs, you see a gain of 6. You see a gain of 7, gain of 7. Okay, on this one, all right, that's fine. It only got 1 yard. It can't be successful every time. I'll take this one, 3 yards. That's positive net yards. You're staying ahead of the chain. And then another one here, another, rushing yards. That got 8 yards. They switched to this formation where they overloaded one side of the line with 3 offensive linemen. They put a tight end on the other side with the guard, and it really allowed them to run the ball inside. Sure, they didn't hit the edges like I quite thought they would, but instead of just continuously running the same plays over and over and over, just like Tommy Rees used to, Jared Parker said, you know what? It's not working. What do I need to do? He had an hour and 45 minutes to think about it. And this is what he came up with. And this ultimately opened up the run game. And of course, Notre Dame's going to be able to pass the ball off the run game. And so naturally the pass game opens up. And next thing you know, Notre Dame brings in an onslaught of points and really starts to run away with the game after that big Audric Estime run.
All right. Good stuff. Good stuff. And that's like me. I wasn't paying as close attention, play to play, just because of the way that we all watch the game a little bit differently. I know Vince focuses a lot on the offensive line. Like that first play, it was very noticeable, the overload that you were talking about. I didn't realize how much they went back to it over the course of the game, but they had good success with it as well. Just not as much success as an 80-yard touchdown run.
Yeah, and that was the thing. You're right. The number one thing I noticed is, obviously I saw that they ran that play on the Audric Estime run, but then when I started to go back, look at it, I was like, man, they really started to use this set, And it was, I think maybe what was a little bit deceiving is they didn't put Sherwood in the backfield like a 2-back look or maybe a full-back look, whatever you want to call him. They started splitting him out, and sometimes it was Holden Stays that was out there. And eventually, that led to a nice switch route where Stays hits the seam and he hits, the 38-yard pass. They get a run play, and then he hits that kind of 40-yard pass out in the flat where he breaks the tackle, goes up the sideline, and scores a touchdown. So to me, this all is set up. Offensive success is set up by Notre Dame running the ball because they're going to pass the ball off of it. Well, when the run game wasn't going well between the tackles, Jared Parker made a conscious decision that he needed to switch up the look, give this NC State something different to look at, and ultimately it's what led to the overall success the rest of the game. So that is the best thing I saw offensively from Notre Dame this weekend.
I saw Chris is asking, can Notre Dame go uneven with Alt more? I mean, I think this was kind of opponent
game specific.
Yeah, specific to that opponent and the kind of defense that they were playing, right?
Yeah, and again, it was, Marcus Freeman talked about it in his press conference about NC State last week. These linebackers flow so quickly, and they
whoop. Uh-oh. Gonna have to wait for Jesse to come back. He got knocked out there. I was trying to take your spreadsheet out of the studio, and it knocked you out as well.
So with these linebackers,
the linebackers flow so quickly.
Yeah, the linebackers flowing so quickly downhill. Those inside gaps were just plugged up so quickly. And so Notre Dame really had to do something to take advantage of that. And I think they used their, downhill ability essentially against them by going with this uneven or overload look on one side with 3 offensive linemen.
Yep, concur. All right, good stuff, Jess. Are you
I
ready for what?
I got one more. I came up with the defensive best thing I saw as well.
Pulling the gun on me here. Okay. What else you got?
Yeah, so again, that was offensively the best thing I saw. I'd be remiss if I didn't give the defense a little bit of love here. And so let me bring up really to me the concept that Brennan Armstrong couldn't quite figure out the entire game. So let me get into that here a little bit. So this is I can't remember what exactly this, where this play was in terms of relation of game and, time left or whatever. But this was a typical kind of formation that NC State came out in. This is 10 personnel with ball on the left hash, 1 wide receiver to the boundary side. Running back is into the boundary with the quarterback and shotgun. And then we have trips to the field side. So in this coverage right now, let me give a little bit of breakdown of what's going on. This is Benjamin Morrison with the wide receiver into the boundary. He's got man-on-man responsibilities with his wide receiver. This is Bertrand in the middle of the field. He's got man-on-man responsibilities with the running back. And then in terms of these wide receivers to the field side or the trip side, this is where the fun starts to happen. You have to the trip side, you have Ramon. This is Ramon Henderson right here. He's got man-to-man. I can't remember exactly who these corners are, but they're man-to-man locked up. So essentially what this is a cover one robber with man kind of underneath across the board. So you have all these guys man-to-man. This guy right here, the safety to the boundary side, this is DJ Brown. He's essentially got half the field. He's going to run down this half of the field over the top. And then this guy right here, and I believe if my memory serves me right, this is Xavier Watts. Xavier Watts in this, he is the robber man. So what does that mean? He's got underneath or middle of the field help to the trip side, right? So he's essentially trying to sneak underneath something here in the middle of the field. And so that is what is meant when you say cover one robber. Basically, DJ Brown is going, he's the safety. He's going to drop and be the safety over the top. And then Xavier Watts is going to be the robber man underneath. And this concept gave Brennan Armstrong fits the entire game. And really, he couldn't pass the ball because he didn't know what was going on. He didn't know who the robber was. And he didn't know who was going to be the deep safety kind of over the top. So what happens on this play is this is the brilliance of this play because it really Brennan Armstrong thinks he knows what's going on, but he really doesn't. And so pre-snap, they'll send the number 3 wide receiver in motion to the boundary. And so now we have basically a 2-by-2 formation. You got 2 wide receivers to the boundary, 2 wide receivers to the field side, and nothing has changed. Well, when this guy goes in motion, DJ Brown now works a little bit more to this side of the field. Ramon Henderson is going to drop back and replace Xavier Watts. Xavier Watts is going to drop down to the motion wide receiver. And now it's the same thing all over again, right? Like these guys are, Benjamin Morrison is still man on man with his guy. Xavier Watts is still man on man with his guy. These backside corners are still man on man with their guys. But the thing that Brennan Armstrong couldn't figure out when sending this guy in motion is who's the robber man and who's the safety playing over top. Well, DJ Brown just takes the other side of the field and takes this seam, and now Ramon Henderson is your robber underneath. But again, even when sending in motion, Brennan Armstrong couldn't figure out who the robber man was, and Notre Dame did a great job of passing that along and really disguising who the robber man was underneath, because Brennan Armstrong thought he had the middle of the field open, but it was never there. And that's what really set him off in the passing game. He cannot get into a rhythm the entire game because of this defense that Notre Dame was playing and disguising their robber man.
Wow. Excellent.
I almost ran out of breath there. I hope that all made sense. That's the goal every
absolutely.
time.
Absolutely. Very, very good stuff. And that's, again, just drawing it up like that. Good stuff. That's why we have the whiteboard.
Now I'm ready for some rapid fire, dang it.
Let's do it. You're ready for rapid fire. Here we go. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Sam Hartman has led a touchdown drive in the 2-minute drills at the end of the first half in all 3 games this season.
Sam Hartman leading, 2-minute drive touchdowns is exactly what you want to see, because I guarantee you, the 2-minute drill is often made, it is needed in really tight games. Obviously, Notre Dame hasn't played, in a tight game, but that possession before the half against NC State, the game was a little still tight. And I think that possession was really important because it springboarded, Notre Dame into the second half, and it put a punctuation on the end of the first half for Notre Dame. So I think the number one thing it says is how much of a leader Sam Hartman is and how he can go up tempo and really lead this offense when it matters most, because they're going to need some of those 2-minute drills, sneaking out some sort of points before halftime. And then, of course, when you get into these closer games, maybe it's Duke, maybe it's Clemson, maybe it's USC, maybe it's Ohio State, games that are decided by one possession, you need to be able to score the ball, at the end of the game or right before the half and really take away those points. So I was very impressed what I've seen so far out of Sam Hartman in the 2-minute drill.
Absolutely. And when you look at the fact that each of the 3, the shortest of the 3, it's not like they've had short fields or even close to midfield. 78 yards was the shortest of the 3. And the last 2 have amounted to 9 plays, and they have totaled 2 touchdowns and a total of 1 minute and 8 seconds. The longest of the touchdown drives, 1 minute and 38 seconds, and that was the Navy game in the opener. I just think it gives them such great confidence now going forward to know that they've got this, to know that the ball is in Sam Hartman's hands. And it kind of goes back to what I've talked about all along, going back to the blue gold game, because Sam Hartman did not necessarily have the most spectacular spring practice season. Now, he was figuring some things out, coming into a new offense, new terminology, new footwork, all kinds of different things were new for Sam Hartman, as experienced as he was. But he didn't necessarily have the most spectacular spring football season. But when the lights went on in the blue gold game, look what he did. Look how accurate he was. The competitor in him comes out. And I think it's the same multiplied by 10 when you get into these 2-minute situations. And the fact that he's been in those situations all along, and all 3 times he has come through and barely had an incomplete pass and led him to the end zone all 3 times. I think it is nothing but confidence that Notre Dame and, the rest of the team can have in Sam Hartman now. And obviously Marcus Freeman, if you have 30 seconds on the clock and, the way he's used the timeouts and stuff like that, he knows that he doesn't have to have a full 2 minutes or even 1.5 minutes. If you give Sam Hartman even a little bit of time left, use those timeouts, you've got a very good chance of it, at a minimum, getting downfield and getting in field goal range.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
So that begs the question. They've got all this success in the 2-minute drill at the end of the first halves in these 3 games. Should they run more tempo offense now, kind of on the regular, to use that, take advantage of the fact that that is something that they do well and that Sam Hartman does well? Here's what Marcus Freeman says about that.
We definitely have tempo in our offensive system. Haven't used it much. It's a varying ways of using tempo. I don't want to be a team that goes as mock speed and runs 100 plays a game because I believe in a complementary football. I believe the ability to establish the run game and different things like that. But we have different ways of running. You can huddle and run tempo out of the huddle. There's just different ways to run tempo. But we do have the ability to be a fast, up-tempo team if we want to. Right now, just that hasn't been in the game today.
So what do you think, Jess? More tempo offense, or are they good the way they are?
I think that they're fine the way they are. I think, like Marcus Freeman said, there's different variations of tempo. There can be tempo and going no huddle. And coming out of the huddle quickly, getting lined up, and getting the playoff rather soon. And then there's a more common tempo of we're just 2-minute drill, we're running play after play after play after play sort of situation. The only thing to me is if you get in this up tempo and you run 3 plays and they're all duds, well, now you're giving the ball back to the defense, to the other team in a matter of 45 seconds, a minute tops. And I think that's what you don't want to run into. Especially against some of these better teams, is you don't want to leave your defense out to dry, meaning you don't want them to be on the field so much that, they don't even get a break off to the sideline. So, I think that certain situations call for tempo, but Notre Dame's offense hasn't needed or looks like it needs something like tempo. It uses it when it needs to, but it's very clear that Jared Parker and Marcus Freeman want to get in this nice rhythm of, running the ball, passing the ball. And it's not necessarily that they're running, super slow or running the kind of the scan offense that we've seen in the past here and there. It's just they're methodically kind of going through the game. So I prefer that rhythm more than, just blazing through tempo all the time. I think it's nice to have tempo when you need it.
Yeah, I agree. Like if there's a change of pace that's needed, then you can go to it. I think you kind of see that a lot of times. Well, if you can do that well at the end of the half or at the end of the game, why don't you do it more often? And I think that for certain teams and in certain situations, it makes sense. But as like a more regular mode of operation for this team, I don't think it makes sense, because one of the key words that Marcus Freeman said there is complementary. They want to have complementary offense and defense. And you can't necessarily be blistering downfield and scoring in a minute when you've got your defense and they're still trying to do their thing as well. And, and then there's the other side of it as well, is especially depending on what kind of team you're playing, it's not going to work the way you want it to all the time. And so if you go out there and you go 3 and out and you only use 10 seconds or 15 seconds of the clock, then that puts your defense in an even bigger bind. And when you've got the kind of offensive line, even though, there's still room for improvement for this line, but the kind of running game and the kind of running backs that you have, you need to make sure that you're using those guys out there as well and making that a big part of your game. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Brady Quinn said on the Big Noon Kickoff show on Fox that he misses the Notre Dame-Michigan rivalry and wants more of it.
Yeah, I think it's right on point that what Tom Brady said about, or sorry, not Tom Brady, Brady Quinn said about, Notre Dame and the Michigan rivalry.
That's blasphemy.
I personally miss the rivalry. I think it's another good game on the schedule. It's another competitive game on the schedule. And you're talking about 2 of the best teams kind of in the Midwest, right? Like these guys, these schools only are, like 2 hours apart, 2.5 hours, 3 hours, between 2 and 3 hours maximum. You're talking about some of the biggest juggernauts kind of in the area. And to me, it's another strong data point on the resume, right? If Notre Dame's not in a conference, if they're not going to play in a conference championship, and people are going to hold that against them, well, you need a slew of 12 strong data points, or the strongest data points that you can get. And I think that's what Michigan is. I think it's a great game. And I always enjoyed the rivalry. I always thought of it as being a true rivalry as well.
Me too. And look, Brady Quinn played here. He played in it. I should have asked Reggie what he thinks about this, if he would like to see more Michigan on the schedule. But I completely agree with it. Like, I realize that there's more acrimony lately, and just with the ACC scheduling and the Big Ten scheduling and things, it is more difficult to get them on the schedule. They are going to be in the schedule in the future. I'm not saying that they should play them every year, but I also think that it would be worth it for Notre Dame and Michigan to play at least once every 4 years, so that everyone on the roster, assuming they stay for the entire 4 years, at least has one opportunity to play a Notre Dame Michigan game. I would at least be for that. So you space them out, so it doesn't even have to be a back-to-back home and home. You space them out every few years. Heck, maybe you take it to some neutral sites every now and then, even though it would still be great, to get them on the campuses. But why not? I would like to see it more often as well. I completely agree with what Brady Quinn is saying. So we've got some receiving questions that have started popping up in the chat after we were talking about Sam Hartman a little bit. Here's my question for you. Michael Mayer led the Irish with 67 receptions for 809 yards and 11 touchdowns last year. Do you buy or sell any Irish receiver getting to any of those numbers this year?
So, see, this is a tough one because, Notre Dame, the ball is very well dispersed right now, meaning that Sam Hartman doesn't necessarily lock onto one guy like he did with Michael Mayer, right? Like everyone knows that by now.
Not that he did with Michael Mayer, that Drew Pine specifically did with Michael Mayer.
Right. Sorry.
Yeah. That's okay.
So my point is it's just so hard to be able to kind of tell you, who's going to get the ball when. Like Notre Dame's leading receiver right now has 128 yards, and that's Chris Tyree. And that's 3-4 games, right? And so, like, the next player after that is Jaden Thomas. He's got 125. But, I mean, the leading receiver only has 8 receptions through four games. So
you're talking about 32 receptions. Less than half of Mayer's pace is the pace right now.
Right. And so you're only talking about, these guys are averaging 2 receptions a game at best. And then in terms of yards, like, you're basically, like 30 yards per game at best right now. So, to me, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think anyone is going to get to that 800. And maybe in the games where, things are a little bit closer, the guys are playing the entire time. They need some more of those big plays. Yeah, sure. Maybe I think that someone might get it. But, on the pace that they're at right now, I really don't see anyone getting there. And I guess if I had to give a prediction of, who would get there in terms of touchdowns, I think it's going to be Jaden Greathouse who might potentially get there. And then in terms of yards, it might be like Jaden Thomas or Chris Tyree. I don't think you're going to see one guy have both of those either. I think you might see a guy be closer to the receiving yards. I think you might see a guy that's going to be closer to the touchdowns. But I don't think you're going to see a combination of both of them. Notre Dame's leading receiving guy isn't also going to be the leading touchdown guy. It's just all too dispersed at the end of the day.
Yeah, everything's going to be spread out. And again, I think that's a good thing. I think that is a perfect thing, the way the ball is being distributed, because as Reggie said as well, it's like you can't find one guy to double team. There's always going to be a different guy who's potentially going to be open, especially when the running backs can all catch the ball and when you've got the tight ends in the mix. And like when you look at the numbers right now, Jaden Thomas is averaging 15.6 a catch, Greathouse over 14, Tyree over 21. The running backs are in the 11 and 12 range. Holden Stays is averaging almost 24 yards per catch. Now, again, he doesn't have a ton of receptions, but my point is, as a team, they're averaging almost 15 yards per catch, and it's because of the way the ball is being dispersed and spread all over the place that you can't find one guy to lock in. And when Sam Hartman is finding the guy, he's not just finding him. More times than not, there's a lot of yak that comes with it as well. So, yeah, I don't think receptions and yards, I don't think anyone is going to touch Mayer's numbers. I think that like Thomas and or Greathouse are both going to end up around the touchdown numbers for next year, for that Mayer had last year.
Yeah, and a sneaky guy is, Holden Stays. He had a 2-touchdown game against NC State. I think he's another guy just because of his bigger body and athleticism near the goal line, right? Like you can really kind of sneak him up the seam like we saw. You can sneak him out into the flat in some RPO looks. Like he's just another big athletic body that has to be accounted for, especially in the red zone. So again, a guy that might not catch a lot of, passes or receiving yards outside the red zone, but as they, progress through the game and get closer to the red zone area, I think Holden Stays is another guy who's going to compile a lot of those touchdowns.
The way he's doing right now, Marcus Freeman said this week that he needs to be a little bit better blocker. Like that will get him on the field more. But I tell you what, if you're averaging almost 24 yards per catch, I think you can find a way to get that on that guy more consistently on the field, whether he can block or not. Let Mitchell Evans take care of some of the blocking. Or then when Eli Raridan comes back, you've got more guys who can do more things. And you talked about kind of the H-back type stuff that Davis Sherwood was doing, who's considered a tight end. But again, he's more an H-back type tight end than a true tight end anyway. Chris says, why doesn't Notre Dame schedule my alma mater, IU Hoosiers? They did, Chris. They will play in 2030 and 2031. So you've got a few years to wait, but they'll be playing IU here in 7 and 8 years. So take heed. Be happy with that. Chris also asked this: would everyone be fine with Hartman having one drive versus Central Michigan as long as they score and get a stop? This is a hard pass for me.
No, especially with Ohio State looming the next week. You got to keep these guys up, like they got to be tuned up, right? Like I think the minimum is what you saw against Tennessee State halftime. And of course, Stymie, I think, kind of brought up right after, my prop bets need him to keep passing touchdowns and passing.
There's priorities, right?
Yeah.
You got to get the over on the touchdown passes first. Yeah, you've got to make sure that the lead is comfortable enough. You're not just gonna, because that resets the whole mentality of the team, and it tells the team that this is a team that we don't have to take seriously. We can take them lightly. And if you're pulling Hartman out after one series and putting the backup quarterback in the first, it's just the wrong mentality to have. You go full speed ahead until you've got a lead somewhat similar to what you had against Tennessee State a couple of weeks ago. You get that, and then it's essentially the starting guys earn the right for the number 2s and the number 3s to get in there at some point. I've got a feeling we'll see Steve Angeli again at some point Saturday, but I don't think you pull that trigger too soon. You've got to make sure that you've got the right kind of lead before that happens. What do you think?
Yeah, listen, we saw 2 blowout games to start the season. Notre Dame, I think, could have easily put in Sam Hartman, remove Sam Hartman after the first quarter. I just don't like the message that sends to the rest of the team, first of all. And then second of all, again, these guys still need their reps, right? Like you need your reps going into Ohio State the next week. And I think everyone should listen to Reggie and not overlook, Central Michigan. They still need to play their hard, do what they need to do against Central Michigan. And I think that's at least 2 halves. I think there's a possibility you'll see him out at halftime. And then definitely at the end of the third quarter, as long as everything is going right.
Michael says, where is Brian? Brian will be right here about an hour from now with Vince doing another show. They didn't have an afternoon show today. They will have one tonight, 8:00 Eastern time. Michael, that is where Brian is. So be looking for that tonight. All right, more questions. Fill in the blank. It's blank that after Colorado's win over Nebraska for a 2-0 start, both College Game Day and Fox's Big Noon Kickoff are going to be in Boulder, taking their shows to Boulder for the Colorado versus Colorado State game this weekend.
It's the prime effect that Colorado's win over Nebraska has led College Game Day and Big Noon to Boulder, for this game against Colorado State. I personally am not a fan of it because Big Noon was there just last week. And so this is back-to-back weeks of Big Noon at Colorado. Yeah, milking it a little bit if you're in terms of the Big Noon. So that's a pass for me on them. And I think game day could have saved the Colorado game for, I don't know, maybe USC or Oregon, when they're not playing a bad Colorado State team. So to me, it's a little bit lazy on both parties. But overall, it's the prime effect. He's drawing everyone in. I mean, listen, FanDuel, DraftKings, they have their own Colorado tab now. Like Colorado literally has its own tab on these sports betting sites. So obviously it's what's bringing in the viewership. It's what's bringing in the numbers. And so, yeah, game day and Big Noon are going to go there. But to me, it's lazy. I think that, again, Big Noon was there last week, and game day needs to pick a better game than Colorado and Colorado State.
Coach Prime might as well be a Kardashian, man. It's like he's driving the clicks right now, driving the clicks and the ratings. But that game, the Colorado-Nebraska game I saw today, had over almost 9 million viewers. And that is a really good number for a college football game at noon on Saturday. And so they are going to ride the Dion gravy train as long as they can. They're obviously hitching their wagon to it, and they're going to hope that it just continues because he sells right now. And I mean, what they're hoping, because I think it's 2 weeks, maybe something like that, Colorado USC, that's when they should really be. That's when they should both. That's a game that deserves both of the shows be in there. But they're hedging a little bit early. It's like, okay, they're 2-0. Nobody can guarantee that they're going to be undefeated going into that game. So they're going to go to Colorado State this weekend. They're riding it. They're going to ride it as long as they can. So I guess I don't blame them, because so far there's a high viewership effect that he's brought, whether you like him or not.
Just the man I was looking for in the chat, Sir Michael Hahn. How are we doing on this fine Tuesday, baby?
We had
40-0.
We had Michael and Tommy. Tommy requested at the start of the show last night that we at least backload the Dallas Cowboys talk. And Michael came in, he obviously wasn't feeling it last night. But I said, look, I wouldn't have even brought up Cowboys last night if they hadn't brought it up, because you were obviously on the show today. So I tell you what, I was a little bit nervous early in that game. That first drive, it was looking like they were just going to march right down and hit the end zone. And I was like, okay, is this defense as good as we think it's going to be? And Chris Collins was, the speed on this Giants team, they got some speed now. And then by the middle of the game, the Cowboys, look at the speed the Cowboys have. It's hard to contend with the Cowboys speed. So a little bit different story. Feeling good. But hey, it's one of 17. There's a whole
We're in the
lot
past. I just had to get that one out. I had to let that one rip. But hey, y'all got the OBJ catch though, so don't forget that one.
Do appreciate that, Michael. Dallas was really good. It's going to be a legit defense, I think, this year, and that's my biggest takeaway from that game. So, legit defense. All right, so interesting one. Do you want to just talk about Aaron Rodgers right now, or do you want to talk about this other thing first?
I think we got to wrap up with Aaron Rodgers.
All right. So do you want to talk about this other thing then, or do you want to just go to Aaron Rodgers?
Let's talk about the other thing.
Okay. So current Chicago Bears defensive lineman Gervin Baxter is in a dispute with the NIL cooperative that gave him a little more than $436,000 in NIL money when he was a player at the University of Florida. So it's like, okay, NIL over $400,000. That's a good chunk of money. Well, Dexter was not aware of a clause in the deal that he signed with this cooperative that he will owe them 15% of his pre-tax NFL earnings for the next 25 years. He's apparently signed on the dotted line, and he's going to owe him 15% of all of his NFL earnings for 25 years. What do you think of this?
I think that whoever put together this NIL deal is lousy. And I think that there is a special place for them in this world. And I think that the representative on behalf of this player is also just lazy as well. Like, one, how do you draft something that, obviously and very deceitfully takes advantage of a young player? And if you were the representative of this player, how are you not reading through it to find something like this? Because at the end of the day, everyone might, there's going to be people say who, the kid should have read it before he signed it. But this is a kid. He has someone representing him, and the NIL is supposed to help the player and be advantageous for the player. And this was clearly deceitful on behalf of whoever drafted up this NIL deal. And so to me, it's just very sad at the end of the day, because now this kid who thought, he was getting some sort of reward or he was reaping, the benefits, is now kind of screwed in the long term, because he's going to owe money for 25 straight years over something that, there should have been, again, someone there to kind of help him, guide him through this. His representative should have, looked out for it and just read things a little bit closer. So to me, at the end of the day, it's a really sad situation. And I don't know how, if you're the person who came up with this NIL deal, how you feel good about yourself, because you're clearly taking advantage of someone for 25 years.
Well, that's the thing, like the fact that you say that you're in there and you're like, when other players now at the University of Florida, current players and players in the future, find out that you did this, why are they going to want to have anything to do with you? And they're going to be even more leery, I think, going in as this gets publicized, going in with, do I really want to go to Florida if this is the kind of stuff that they're going to pull? And remember now, this is also the same school or at least the same school that, the Arizona State quarterback was promised all this money, and then the cooperative couldn't come through, and then he ended up going to Arizona State instead because they couldn't get him all the money that they promised in their NIL deal. And it is, as Josh says, it is very shady that you would pull this. And it's also like, if you're going to sign some kind of contract like this as a player, as a student athlete, you've got to make sure that it's not just you and your parents reading this. As Joe says, how dumb was he that he didn't have a lawyer? You've got to have a lawyer read the fine print, because that's what this is. They didn't take the time to read the fine print. And now I think I went and I did the math. It's like, if he even makes $15 million over the course of his career in exchange for getting $436,000, he's going to have to pay these people $2.2 million, I think is what it came out to. Just at in that ball. And like 15 million is not a huge sum over the course of an entire NFL career, especially if you get that second contract and you're making more money. So like he's going to pay through the teeth. I'll be really curious to see if he can fight this and what he can do about it, but he signed on the dotted line, and you just, I guess it's a buyer beware kind of thing. If you are a player and you're looking at these NIL deals and you have people coming at you with this money and you're signing contract, you better make sure that you have somebody who is whose job it is to read contracts and just hire a lawyer. That's what it comes down to. It's amazing that he didn't, apparently. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Aaron Rodgers' season with the Jets looks like it is over after tearing his Achilles during the first series, fourth play with the Jets last night.
It is incredibly sad. And you, the listeners, viewers, whoever you might be, should really take that to heart when I say something like that, because I do not like Aaron Rodgers. I despise Aaron Rodgers. He's been a cowboy killer. He's a smug guy. Everyone knows, Aaron Rodgers and what he's about, right? But I would never, ever, ever wish or, be happy for injury that happens to someone, and especially a ruptured Achilles, because that is painful. It is a long process to come back. And also it compromises the rest of the leg going forward as well. Like when you rupture your Achilles, you got to remember that's the tendon that connects, foot to leg. And so even if he recovers his Achilles, he could potentially be at risk or compromised in the calf, in the foot, in the knee. Like other things around the Achilles are now going to be compromised.
Especially when you're his age. Yeah.
That was exactly my next point. When you talk about a man who's 39 going on 40, it's even harder, right? Like it's incredibly sad. And I would never want to see someone go out like that, especially the first series of the season.
And that's, all this buildup, all this offseason of goodwill and Aaron Rodgers, and you had Hard Knocks and all this image rehabilitation that he did. And it's 9/11. It's in New York City. It's 9/11 weekend. Both New York teams got to play home games and back-to-back primetime nights. And here's Aaron Rodgers running out of the tunnel with the flag. And it's like barely settled into my seat to watch. And you see him get sacked and it didn't look like much. And the next thing you know, he's going out and it's, you're kind of going, man, it's like, because I'm with you. I've never been an Aaron Rodgers fan, but again, like everything that goes with this, to see this go 4 plays and then that's it. It's just, it is, as a couple of the guys have said, it is so Jets. It's just really, really horrible to see something like this. Because and then for the game to end the way it did last night on Xavier Gibson. And by the way, that was an undrafted free agent. If you watched Hard Knocks, you know that the guy who returned the punt, an undrafted free agent who took that back for a touchdown last night in overtime. I believe it is just the 3rd game to end in overtime on a punt return. I was at the first game in NFL history to end on a punt return. That was Chiefs and Chargers.
Miles Austin.
Early 90s. Tamarick Vanover was the man who took it back. Former Florida State Seminole wide receiver. But really sucks. Really sucks for Aaron, especially for a guy who's about to turn 40. Do you think that this is the end of his career?
It's a double-edged question for me. I think it should be the end of his career, but I think knowing Aaron Rodgers, he's just too competitive. I don't think anyone would want to go out under those circumstances. So I do believe Aaron Rodgers does try to come back. But me personally, his age and knowing how significant an Achilles tear is and what it can cause on the rest of the leg, I do think he should be done. But I just ultimately don't think he will be.
I don't either. I think he'll be back. I think he'll try to make a comeback next year and give it at least one more go, because I think that, this was going to be like a 2-year deal anyway. For them, they've got a championship defense, and they've only got one quarterback on the roster right now. So there's a lot of talk about what they're going to do. But I think Aaron Rodgers will be back next year. I don't think that he would just, after all this, I don't think that he would hang it up and just walk away into retirement at this point. Chris was saying, how about Phillip Rivers? There are a ton of names being
I was going to say,
who
would be on the top of your list? Give me the top 3 guys that you would call.
Tom Brady would be number 1. Like, that would be the first call I would make.
Do you think, though, that he would do it after everything that just happened with New England? I think that plays a big part of it, because Kraft, expedited all the stuff, retiring of Brady and, the Ring of Honor, whatever it is. And I just don't think you could go play for a divisional opponent after, 20 years of New England and everything that Kraft just kind of did.
I think the biggest thing with Brady, one is whether or not he wants to play, but 2, the fact that he bought all this, he's got this ownership stake in the Raiders now. And for him to come back, I think that he would have to give that up. So, it's like, it's very complicated, but he would definitely be the first call. The guy did just retire. And, so like, I don't know what kind of football shape he is in, because I think that I saw like he's already lost like 15 or 20 pounds or something like that. So I don't know that, that he's ready to potentially go out there and take that kind of beating. I saw Matt Ryan. After what we saw from Matt Ryan with the Colts, I would not be in on that. Phillip Rivers, he's already been gone for 2 years now. There are just not a lot of very good viable options out there. What's that?
I said, I know who my pick would be. He's not sexy. He's bounced around a little bit, but he still wants to play. He still was good at his peak. I think you got to give Carson Wentz a call.
Ooh, interesting. He's been out for what, at least 3 years by now, hasn't he?
No, I thought he got some playing time last year. I thought he was like a backup somewhere or.
Oh, Carson Wentz. I was thinking Carson Palmer. Sorry.
Yeah, Carson Wentz.
I suppose you need at least a body. So Carson Wentz might not be a bad idea, but at the same time, Andrew was saying Jameis Winston, Chi-Town is saying Colt McCoy, Fitzmagic.
Like, none of these guys are going to be ideal, right? Like,
yeah.
But the thing is, you got to have someone other than Zach Wilson. And I would say Zach Wilson, it was funny. I watched the Peyton Manning cast all game, right? And so it was just, everyone was, there's really nothing the Jets can do here. They're kind of screwed, blah, blah, blah. I think the Jets showed a tremendous amount of grit pulling that game out, coming together after a very bad circumstance against a team that very well outmatched them. And I think second of all, Zach Wilson made some throws when he needed to make some throws. All right. Like there was one pass, it was Lazard over the middle, and he threw us a rope on 3rd and 12. And it was funny because when Lazard caught it, he kind of like jumped back a little bit. And I don't even think Lazard thought that ball was going to be on him like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the Jets will do. Did you see what happened at this bar in Wisconsin? Vince and I talked about this. So we talked about this on the show a couple of weeks ago. I think there's a bar in the Green Bay area. They were offering free drinks on the house. What you had to do, you had to show up at least 15 minutes before the Jets game. Aaron Rodgers had to start. This is any Jets game this season. Aaron Rodgers had to start. You show up 15 minutes early, start your tab. You have to stay for the whole game. And if the Jets lose that game, the bar was going to pay your tab. It was only beer. It was like no top shelf alcohol, no food, but they would have bought, paid for, whatever else. They were going to pick up your tab. So the game is going on last night. These people are hanging around. It's overtime. The bar is still packed. And so, of course, the game ends on Xavier Gibson's walk-off punt return. And then all these people are like slowly realizing, oh, I've racked up this massive bar bill and now I've got to pay it. The bar's not going to pay this tab for me. It's hilarious.
I think it is very, very funny. But I mean, to be honest with you, it's easy now in hindsight to say, oh, well, I would have racked up a bill. As soon as I saw Aaron Rodgers go down, I would have been like beer. Like there is no way. Like that game is played 99 more times. I don't think the Jets sneak out a win. Like that is a 1 in 100 chance. And so it is very, very unfortunate for those folks that had to end up paying for their drinks at the end of the night. But I would have been one of them, and I would have been racking them up, baby. So
good
unfortunate
stuff
for them.
Yep, that's right. They would have had to wheel you home, and they would have had to pull your debit card out of your wallet. All right, well, that's going to do it for tonight. Again, don't forget Brian and Vince, 8:00 Eastern time tonight. They'll be live right here on the Irish Breakdown channel, and of course, we'll be back here tomorrow. Jesse will be back with his whiteboard on Thursday as well, as we look forward to Central Michigan. So we will talk to you then. Hit the like button on your way out, and of course, subscribe, or rate, and review, and we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports.